Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Younger, more perfect.
Let's go.
There's been a use of the substance.
Desperate to be a celebrity, this woman is using a suspicious substance that promises to keep her young and beautiful forever. But she's about to learn it comes at a terrible cost. We cut to someone injecting an egg yolk with a strange liquid. After a moment, they notice a perfect copy of the yolk forms inside the egg white. Next, a famous star, Elizabeth Sparkle, receives her star on the Walk of Fame. She poses for the cameras, basking in the moment as fans snap countless photos. But over the years, the glamour fades. People walk over her star, barely even noticing it, symbolizing the sad truth. Elizabeth's fame is slipping away. Her star becomes forgotten, cracked, and dusty as time passes. In the present day, Elizabeth hosts an aerobics show. After filming, she heads to the bathroom. Everyone wishes her a happy birthday as she passes, reminding her she's just turned 50. Finding the women's room occupied, she slips into the men's bathroom instead. And then, she overhears her producer, Harvey, saying he needs a new star, because Elizabeth, he thinks, is too old. The words sting. She stares at herself in the mirror, confronting the harsh truth. To them, her age is now her flaw. Later, over lunch, Harvey tries to be casual. "It's not personal," he says. "I just want to give people what they want." Elizabeth is shattered. On her drive home, she sees workers taking down a billboard with her face on it. In a flash, a car slams into hers. A terrible accident. She wakes up in the hospital, miraculously unharmed. The doctor wishes her a happy birthday, and she starts to sob. When the doctor leaves, a male nurse enters, checking her back. He tells her she can go, handing her a bright yellow coat. She notices something odd, a purple mark on his hand. As she leaves, she finds a flash drive wrapped in paper inside the coat pocket. On it, it reads, "The Substance." She turns the paper over. It has a number with a message that says, "It changed my life." Returning home, she finds a bouquet of roses, a parting thank you from the company for her years of service. The gesture feels hollow. Later, she plugs in the flash drive and finds an ad for a mysterious serum. It promises something unbelievable. With its use, she could have two bodies, one of herself, as she is now, and a younger version of herself, one for each day of the week. At the bar that night, she bumps into an old classmate, Fred. He smiles and says she's still the most beautiful girl he's ever known. She takes his number, and for a moment, feels a little better. But as the night wears on, she finds herself in the restroom, staring at her tear-streaked face in the mirror. She can't stop thinking about the serum. After wrestling with her decision, she finally calls the number. A voice answers, instructing her to write down an address. The next morning, she finds an ad in the paper. Her aerobics company is already looking for her replacement. Furious and determined to be young again, she opens the package that arrives, finding a card labeled with the number 503. She heads to the address and scans the card at the gate. It opens, leading her to a locker. Inside, she finds a box labeled Activator and Stabilizer for the clone. Back home, she stands in front of the bathroom mirror, injects herself with the stabilizer. At first, nothing, but then she starts feeling dizzy and collapses. Pain tears through her as her back splits open, revealing a younger, more beautiful version of herself. Now in this new body, she looks down at her original self. Lying there with her back slit open, she vomits. Elizabeth 2 quickly stitches up Elizabeth 1, hooking her to an IV filled with nutrient fluid. Elizabeth 1 remains silent, still, until she finally lets out a faint whimper. The next morning, Elizabeth 2 takes a shower, leaving Elizabeth 1 lying on the bathroom floor. After her shower, she notices a nosebleed and remembers she needs to stabilize. Using a long syringe, she extracts spinal fluid from Elizabeth 1 and injects it into herself. Instantly, she feels normal again, stronger, capable, like her old self. Then, she heads to the company for the aerobics audition, her heart racing. She spots a shiny pink leotard in a display window and can't resist. Wearing it, she strides in and introduces herself confidently as Sue. Harvey is thrilled with Sue as the new face of the show. She casually mentions, "I'm only available for 7 days, 2 weeks each month." Harvey doesn't even blink. "We'll work around your schedule," he says, grinning. "You're perfect for the job." Sue is hired on the spot and dives headfirst into her new life, posing for photo shoots that soon appear on billboards all over the city. With her youth and beauty restored, she relishes the attention and works hard at aerobics, determined to be the best, all while remembering to stabilize herself each day. After 7 days, she returns home and attaches a tube to herself and Elizabeth's body. As the blood begins transferring, she watches Elizabeth slowly come back to life, while Sue herself drifts into rest for the week. Elizabeth awakens, groaning as the pain from her slit back returns. She carefully moves Sue aside, gently touching her younger self. Starving, she makes herself some eggs, attaches Sue's food bag, and goes about her life. Elizabeth pays a visit to the company, where Harvey greets her warmly. "Let's have a drink," he says, handing her a gift box with her belongings inside. They toast to her legacy, and she realizes it's truly time to plan her days, some as Sue and others as herself. She waits out her 7 days in her house, eager for Sue to revive. And finally, Sue comes alive again, eager to live. She explores Elizabeth's house, beginning to knock on the walls, convinced there's a hidden space somewhere. In the bathroom, she discovers it. With a fierce determination, she breaks through the wall, hammering and tearing, leaving the place in ruins. Suddenly, a knock on the door startles her. She opens it to find Oliver, her neighbor, who freezes, staring in awe at her beauty. He stumbles over his words, flirting, but she gives him a cold look, uninterested. After he leaves, it's revealed that Sue has created a hidden room just for Elizabeth, sealing her off from the world. Finally, Sue's big moment arrives. Her first show, Pump It Up. She takes the stage, radiant, giving a flawless performance. This is the life she's fought for. After her show, Sue plans to celebrate, casually telling Elizabeth, "I won't be out too late." Elizabeth's food bag is nearly empty, but Sue still goes out. While Sue enjoys a night with a young man at their house, Elizabeth begins to weaken, her food bag shriveling up. Things get intense between Sue and the man, but suddenly, she feels a nosebleed coming on. Frustrated, she excuses herself and, in a rash decision, extracts even more fluid from Elizabeth to keep going. But as the man unzips her bodysuit, Sue's organs begin slipping out, horrifying both of them. Elizabeth wakes, groggy, to find Sue lying next to her, lifeless. She heads to the living room and realizes it's already daylight. On the window, she spots a note left by the man from the night before. But as she reaches out to take it, she catches sight of her hand. Her fingers are blackened, dehydrated. She panics, noticing that Sue took more fluid than she needed. Desperate, Elizabeth calls the company, asking if she can reverse what's happening to her. They respond coldly, "It's not possible. You must maintain a balance between your time as Sue and as Elizabeth." Determined to survive, Elizabeth heads out to retrieve a refill kit sent by the company. She grabs the parcel and slips into a nearby cafe, ordering a latte to calm her nerves. An old man at the counter strikes up a conversation, commenting, "7 days? It's a long time." Elizabeth glances down and notices the same purple mark on his hand. The man gives her a knowing look, speaking softly, "It gets lonely, you know? Hard to remember that we deserve to exist as our real selves." Fear prickles at her as she starts to leave. But he calls after her, asking, "Has it started yet? Eating away at you?" Shaken, Elizabeth rushes home and finds Fred's number. She remembers his kindness, how he thought she was still beautiful. She calls him up and arranges a date for that night, feeling a sliver of hope. Later, as she gets ready, she notices Sue's billboard outside her window. Suddenly self-conscious, she layers on more makeup, trying to look like her younger self. But just before she leaves, she catches a glimpse of herself, distorted in the reflection of a doorknob. For a split second, she looks unrecognizable. Horrified, she angrily wipes off her makeup, scrubbing away the image of Sue. She decides not to meet Fred. Instead, she indulges herself, filling the void with food. Later, Sue is preparing for her show, looking radiant and unstoppable. But during her routine, something feels wrong. She senses a bulge protruding from her and freezes. Stopping mid-dance, she feels the director's eyes on her, and as they review the replay, she hurries to her dressing room in a panic. There, she pushes the bulge up to her belly and to her shock extracts a chicken leg. But then, she wakes up, realizing it was all just a horrible, surreal dream. She looks around and sees the truth. Elizabeth has been binge eating again. Furious, she throws all the food in the trash. Heading out for her show, she's startled to see nothing is ready. Harvey pulls her aside, and feeling nervous, she braces herself. But then he grins and says, "We want you to host the New Year's Eve show." She's overjoyed. But soon, Sue's greed takes over. She begins to take more of Elizabeth's spinal fluid, each time whispering, "Just one more day." Days pass, turning into weeks, as Sue extends her own life, leaving Elizabeth behind. When Elizabeth finally gets her body back, she takes one look in the mirror and screams. Her skin is wrinkled, dehydrated, her hair patchy. She's aged, deteriorated far beyond her years. Furious, she calls the company, begging for a solution. They offer her a way to stop it, but Elizabeth refuses, knowing she'd lose everything. Later, as Elizabeth watches television in her frail state, struggling even to stand, she reaches for Harvey's gift. Opening it, she finds a cookbook, of course. Suddenly, the TV blares with Sue's face on a talk show, boasting about her success. Elizabeth's hands shake as Sue begins insulting her, dismissing her old program as Jurassic Fitness. Rage builds in Elizabeth, and she stuffs herself with food, determined to make Sue pay for her cruelty. When Sue finds out about Elizabeth's binge eating, she's livid. She decides, swearing never to switch back again. In a fit of rage, she drains every last drop of fluid from Elizabeth's body, sneering, "You're just bitter because I have it all." For 3 long months, Sue sustains herself, living solely on stabilizers and savoring her glamorous new life. Her face beams from billboards. Her New Year's Eve show is everywhere. One evening, a man wraps his arms around her from behind, whispering for her to come to bed. She promises, "I'll be right there," and heads to the bathroom to get more fluid. But when she checks Elizabeth, she's completely drained. Panicked, Sue calls the substance company. Their answer chills her. "Switch back to Elizabeth if you want to survive." Her nose begins to bleed, her vision blurs, and she collapses to the floor, barely managing to crawl her way to the bathroom. As Elizabeth awakens, disoriented, she hears the man approaching, drawn by the noise. Quickly, she locks the door before he can come in. She turns to the mirror and freezes. A horrifying sight stares back at her. A bald head, shriveled skin, a twisted, hunched figure. She's barely recognizable. Her voice rasps out as she tells the man to leave, and hearing the broken sound of it, he bolts from the apartment. Elizabeth, desperate, calls the substance company again and tells them, "I'm done. I want to stop." They send the termination fluid, and as she holds it, their voice assures her, "Once you use it, you'll exist on your own. No more Sue." Shaking, she fights against the voices in her head, finally injecting the syringe into Sue's chest. But looking down at Sue's perfect, youthful face, she hesitates. Sue kept her dreams alive, and with the New Year's Eve show tonight, Elizabeth knows it needs her. Torn, she yanks the syringe out, trying frantically to revive Sue. Suddenly, something goes terribly wrong. Both Elizabeth and Sue awaken at the same time, staring at each other, horrified. Somehow, Elizabeth's consciousness has split into 2. Sue's eyes dart to the termination syringe on the floor, and with a scream, she lunges at Elizabeth, smashing her head against a painting. Elizabeth manages to break free and stumbles toward the bathroom, but Sue, blinded by rage, kicks down the door, causing Elizabeth to hit her head on the sink. Grabbing her by the hair, Sue forces her to look in the mirror. "Look at yourself," she sneers, smashing Elizabeth's head into the mirror again and again. Elizabeth, barely alive, crawls toward the living room, but Sue catches up, her blows relentless, until Elizabeth goes still, lifeless on the floor. Breathless, Sue looks down, horrified by what she's done, but decides she has to leave for the show. Later, as Sue prepares backstage, a wave of sickness hits her. She rushes to the bathroom, only to feel her front teeth loosen and fall into her hands. In horror, she realizes she's deteriorating, her own body betraying her. She suddenly remembers she has some activator serum left over. With a rush of determination, she decides to produce another version of herself. As she strides through the halls, her heart races when she spots Harvey with all the stakeholders of the show. "Are you okay?" He urges her to smile, yet because of her missing teeth, all she can manage is a tight-lipped smile, filled with a mix of hope and sorrow. When she reaches the elevator, she presses the button, but her fingernail snaps off, and then she loses an ear. Panicked, Sue manages to rush to the apartment, fumbling with the activator serum. This is her last chance. The serum is only for single use. She injects herself, and as the needle slips from her hand, she collapses, gasping. But this version? It's a horrifying, twisted hybrid of both Elizabeth and Sue, with Elizabeth's face grotesquely emerging from its back. The deformed version tries desperately to dress herself, but oh, she looks horrible. She forces an earring into her thick, unyielding skin, wincing as it digs in. She grabs a curling iron, hoping to style her hair, but finds it's already burned and ruined. Improvising wildly, she decides to cut out a portrait of Elizabeth's face to wear like a mask for the show. As Elisa steps into the spotlight, her mask begins to slip. Then it falls, revealing the horrifying, twisted state she's in. The crowd stares, horrified. The crowd erupts in chaos, screaming and scrambling to get away. As people scream and run, Elisa desperately tries to convince them, but instead of listening, they shove her down to the ground. Each and every one of them seems eager to kill her. To their horror, they soon discover that her body grotesquely grows another head. Then she begins spinning, showering everyone with chaos. Panic erupts among the crowd as Elisa frantically tries to escape. Once outside, she starts to run, but in a terrifying twist, she spreads out everywhere, fragments flying in all directions. With her strength dwindling, Elizabeth pushes herself toward her star on the Walk of Fame. As she gazes at the 3 palm trees and the shimmering stars above, she imagines glitter falling upon her. feeling for one last time that she is truly loved by the people. She envisions herself young again, surrounded by admirers who appreciate her beauty. With this comforting thought enveloping her, Elizabeth begins to melt right where her star lies, seeping through the cracks. The next morning, a cleaner arrives, wiping away every trace of her, leaving her star to shine brightly once more. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you'd love us to recap for you.